as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, light this beacon of hope, southwest for truth and meaning.
In celebration of the life we share together. Scott, would you ring the chimes?
We've come to the time in our service where we take time to center ourselves and experience some silence and going within. So I invite you now to sit comfortably in your chair with your feet flat on the floor. Close your eyes if you wish. Be aware of your breathing as you enter into a quiet place inside yourself. Let us pray. Sending first thoughts of loving kindness to ourselves. May I be safe and secure. May I be strong in body, mind, and spirit. May I be happy and content. May I have ease of well-being. And now let us send those same thoughts of loving kindness to all sentient beings. May all beings be safe and secure. May all beings be strong in body, mind, and spirit. May all beings be happy and content. May all beings have ease of well-being. Amen. Way back when I was in seminary, over 30 years ago, I became fascinated by the myths in Genesis 1 to 11, so much so that I spent 2 years studying them and writing my MA thesis, a theory of the interpretive development of the myths in Genesis 1 to 11. I brought new eyes and understanding to an old familiar text. I love doing that, looking at things in new ways. It got me into trouble with some of my seminary professors. I remember getting back papers with the notation, "This is not the traditional way of understanding this text." I knew that. I wasn't interested in just the traditional way. I wanted to look beneath the surface to see what may have been covered over and distorted by tradition and politics along the way. I got in trouble with some of the people in my congregation, too, when I was serving a church. After preaching a different understanding of a New Testament text for the second time, one woman came up to me after church and said, "You still haven't learned anything, have you?" Well, if that meant blindly following traditional interpretations, then no, I guess I hadn't. And I was darn proud of it. I respect tradition, but I am not blinded by it. I was on my way to Unitarian Universalism, but I didn't know it yet. The myths in Genesis 1 to 11 were passed down as oral tradition until about 500 BC. They were very similar to other creation myths that were prevalent in the Near East at the time. But the Israelites modified them to correspond with how they experienced their own unique situation. They made them their own. There are actually two separate creation stories in those opening chapters of Genesis. Two traditions that were woven together to make the whole that we have today. The Israelites had been conquered by the Babylonians at the time, and their leaders were taken off into exile in Babylon. In order to ensure that their traditions would survive, they wrote them down. Now, at that time, very few people knew how to read and write. So they were still dependent on oral transmission, but now the scribes read the text to the people. The text uses the Tower of Babel, reaching ever higher for the sky, as a symbol of their expanded national identity. They had exceeded their limitations, and it all came tumbling down. Their world was in chaos. Now, the very same words that they used to speak of the formlessness and void at the beginning of creation were used by both Jeremiah and 2nd Isaiah to describe the state of the nation after being conquered by the Babylonians. The Hebrew words were tohu vabohu. Those are the only three places in the whole Old Testament where those two words are used together. Primordial chaos or a defeated nation. Tohu vavohu. Formlessness and void fits both. These creation stories were meant to bring hope to a defeated people. The chaos that they found themselves in was not the end, but the chance for the start of a new beginning. It's really quite fascinating when you look at the progression of creation as set down in Genesis 1. They had an understanding of the evolution of life on this planet that was truly amazing for their time. Then in Genesis 3, we have the story of Adam and Eve and what has been commonly considered the fall of humanity. Adam and Eve ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and as a consequence, they were driven out of the Garden of Eden. They had committed original sin. But was it really a fall? Was it really a sin? I don't think so. The fruit of the tree of knowledge made humans self-aware. After they ate the fruit, they knew that they were naked. That self-awareness brought with it the possibility of getting things wrong and the responsibility to try to get it right. My thesis advisor, Dr. Henshaw, suggested that good and evil in Genesis 3 are not moral judgments, but rather that good is that what works, and evil is what doesn't work. And often, our actions have unintended consequences. At the time that I wrote my MA thesis, others were coming around to the same conclusion. Matthew Fox, a Roman Catholic Dominican scholar, debunked the idea of original sin in his book, Original Blessing. Rabbi Harold Kushner, in his book, How Good Do We Have to Be, wrote, I am suggesting that the story of the Garden of Eden is not an account of people being punished for having made one mistake, losing paradise because they were not perfect. It is the story of the first human beings graduating, evolving from the relatively uncomplicated world of animal life to the immensely complicated world of being human, and knowing that there is more to life than eating and mating. That there are such things as good and evil. They enter a world where they will inevitably make many mistakes, not because they are weak or bad, but because the choices they confront will be such difficult ones. But the satisfaction will be equally great. While animals can only be useful and obedient, human beings can be good. The story of the Garden of Eden is not a story of the fall of man, but of the emergence of humankind. Seen this way, the story of evolution started in Genesis 1, continues in Genesis 3. Human beings evolved to be self-aware. Human beings became created creative beings, like God, in their capacity to create, but not God. In that self-awareness, we lost something. We traded the sense of oneness with all of creation for a sense of separateness that, left unchecked, could lead us to our downfall. It is that sense of oneness of everything that wise men and women over the ages have struggled desperately to recover. Over and over, in most, if not all, religious traditions, there is a form of the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. It is a teaching based on love and compassion. That sense of oneness is included in our 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So one creation story is about the natural order of things, the primeval world order. The second creation story is about the cultural order, humans emerging into creativity. When fundamentalists claim that the Bible says that the world is only about 5,000 years old, they are actually talking about human civilization. The cultural order, not all of creation, the natural order. They mistake the first 6 days of creation as 24-hour days, not the long periods of evolution that took place in the natural world. Human beings are created beings, part of that natural world, and creative beings, active participants in the cultural development of the world. These two, nature and culture, are interwoven in Genesis 1 to 11, the natural order set forth in the genealogies, the cultural order telling the story of human activity. Our human activity is a system that works or doesn't work within the overall system of the created order of the universe. Human activities and their consequences start at the personal level, Adam and Eve. Move on to the interpersonal level, Cain and Abel, to the family, to the tribal, and finally to the national level. At each level, when humans choose what goes against the natural order and therefore doesn't work, there are consequences. Seeing ourselves as naked, suffering pain and needing to work for a living, the mark of Cain, Noah's Ark and the flood, ending up eventually, when they had gotten too big, with the collapse of the whole thing, the fall of the Tower of Babel, and a new beginning, Abraham and Sarah, the new Adam and the new Eve in Genesis 12. We always have a choice. We can correct the path that we're on, or we can have it corrected for us by nature, like the flood. Even then, Noah was instructed to build an ark to save a remnant with which to start over. Now, why is all this important? Because it's the way the ancient Israelites understood how the world works. Genesis 1 to 11 formed the plot pattern by which they understood their history. And whether we consciously realize it or not, it influences how we understand the world works. Over the years, human beings tried to ensure that they were doing the right things by creating systems of laws. The Jews ended up with laws upon laws upon laws, all meant to protect themselves from the possibility of going against the natural order of things. Only problem is, we don't know it all. We're still learning. Too often we let power and greed, envy and suspicion, and just plain ignorance cloud our thinking. It's all part of growing up as a species. We've made great advances in tolerance of differences, but we have a long way to go. 2,000 years ago, a man was born called Jesus of Nazareth. It was common practice in the world at that time to create myths around the birth, life, and death of certain individuals to accentuate the importance of their teachings. Jesus was just one of many who were said to have been born of a virgin, performed miracles, and rose from the dead after they died. Those myths were meant to tell us that this man was important. His message was and is important. It did not die with him. His message was very simple. There is only one law: love. Love one another. Love your enemies. Love the earth on which we live. Love all of creation. There is no male or female, no Jew or Gentile. We are all one. For this he was crucified. He was not the first to be attacked and killed for preaching love, nor will he be the last. Love is all too often seen as weakness. Power is seen as strength. Hate, intolerance, greed, power, these are the things that many people live by. The basic message of love and equality for all was distorted by people trying to advance their own agendas. And advance them, they did. Christianity, as we know it today, is the product of political decisions made years ago. Ideas like the equality of women, traces of which can still be seen in parts of the New Testament, lost out to patriarchy. The powerful voices won the arguments. The losers were considered heretics. We don't have all the answers. We're still searching for the truth. Those who think they have all the answers are mistaken. Those who are open to seeking a new way are considered heretics in many religions. Well, I stand proudly here today as a heretic. I am a seeker. I know that I am not God. I am part of the created order. I am a creative human being. I am evolving in my understanding of how the world works. I am open to new ideas. I stand for justice for all, for acceptance of differences, for the power of love. That, for me, is what Unitarian Universalism is about. Not stuck in the past, but learning from it and open to new possibilities. We are growing and evolving as human beings, creative beings, part of the created order of the universe with a creative role in it. The chalice is a symbol of the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the power of commitment. These are the things that I choose to live by. We make mistakes. All human beings make mistakes. But the trick is to learn from our mistakes and correct them before it's too late. We are meant to be creative. It is our place in evolution. It is our birthright. But there are limits to our creativity. Our creativity must respect the oneness of all of creation. When we violate the natural order, we will suffer the consequences. We have a choice. We always have a choice. Respect nature or be done in by it. The higher we climb, the harder we fall. That is the message of Genesis 1 to 11. Human beings are evolving. We are the creators of the cultural world in which we live. Whether that is for good or evil, whether it works or doesn't work, for the good of all creation is part of our learning process. We can choose to learn from our mistakes or repeat them and suffer the consequences. The message of Jesus of Nazareth is to choose love. Love one another. Love all of creation. Take care of one another and all the earth. As we evolve as human beings, we face many challenges, but we were meant to grow and develop and create. Emerson wrote, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. Is it so bad to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood." More recently, Deepak Chopra wrote, "We cannot evolve if our minds are closed. This is because we use our minds to evolve. No new knowledge can exist unless a pathway opens for intelligence to flow through. Open-minded people are simply in the habit of opening new channels. They accept, rather than fear, that they will find something new in the world, a discovery that really challenges their prejudices and thus overturns their sacred idols. When intelligence finds a new channel, then more of life flows through us. Bad habits are just worn-out ruts of the mind, paths that once led to freedom because they opened up new thoughts, but that now lead nowhere. All we have to do is look at the unhealthy minds of prejudiced people to realize that intolerance is toxic. It poisons human growth. It makes it impossible for perfect health to flourish. Intelligence is like water. It has to keep running in order to stay pure. An innocent, inquiring, open mind is a prerequisite for healthy living. If you are open to new possibilities in your life, then that alone will give you access to those possibilities. Readiness is all. We're on a path of evolution. We're growing in our ability to create. We make mistakes. Hopefully, we are learning from our mistakes. As T.S. Eliot wrote in the Four Quartets, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." We started out one with nature. We evolved to become self-aware. Our journey is heading us back to oneness with nature. The all is one. It is taking us a long time to get there. May we not be too late arriving. So let it be.
Join us for worship every Sunday at 10 a.m. at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canandaigua, a welcoming congregation. We are located at 3024 Cooley Road, 4 miles west of South Main Street, Canandaigua, just north of the intersection with Routes 5 and 20. Look for the blue signs just before the turn. Your comments about this program or questions about the church are welcome at 585-396-1370 or at our website, www.canandaiguauu.org. Producer and editor, Daniel Brigham.